We will talk about different kinds of figures of speech, different types of figures of speech. In this lecture, we will talk about hyperbole. I'm sure that all of you are very much familiar with hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech in which a poet, a writer, or a speaker exaggerates for the sake of emphasis. Okay, so in this particular figure of speech, a poet, a writer, or a speaker exaggerate. Exaggeration means talking about something in a very exaggerated manner, in a very uh, high manner, we can say. In Marathi, we have the term atishokti for hyperbole. We call it atishokti alankar. So in English, it is called hyperbole. It is an exaggerated expression or exaggerated statement. Hyperbolic statements are usually quite obvious exaggerations. As soon as the speaker utters that statement or the word, we realize that he's or she's exaggerating. So actually, the intention behind using hyperbolic statements is to emphasize a point, to emphasize on something, that the speaker is trying to convey. It is not to be taken literally. The meaning should not be taken literally. शब्दशः अर्थ त्याचा लावायचा नसतो. ओके, एखादा मुद्दा मुद्दा अधोरेखित करण्यासाठी, to emphasize a point, the statements are exaggerated. For example, when we look at the example, my backpack weighs a ton. Now here we refer to suppose a kind of bag the person is carrying on his back, and he says my backpack weighs a ton. A ton means a ton is a kind of weighing, you might be knowing, quintal, ton, etc. So he says, I'm carrying a very heavy bag. To say that he's using my backpack weighs a ton. So here the speaker actually doesn't think that the backpack weighs a ton. Actually, the speaker does not want to, even does not want the listener to think so. But it is the way of saying something. Hazaro log, for example, when we say. So then time the people may not be in that number. But we want to convey that it was very crowded place. So here the person who is talking about the backpack wearer, simply wants to communicate through the use of hyperbole that he or she is carrying a very heavy load. So that is the intention. Now let's try to understand uh, that hyperbole has the ability to express larger than life emotion. In film songs, in poems, you come across such kind of use of hyperbole. Sitare Tod Love, for example. Dharti ko asma bana. So these are the hyperbolic expressions. So this particular figure of speech has the ability to express larger than life emotion, and it is a commonly used device in novels, poetry, in politics, for example. In our day-to-day experience, we see politicians generally exaggerate. Even in advertisements, hyperbole is very commonly used. Litotes is the opposite of hyperbole. Hyperbole is a kind of overstatement. We say, don't be over smart. So similarly, hyperbole is an overstatement. And opposite of hyperbole is litotes. Litotes is a deliberate understatement. You can understand that both over and under are opposite terms in terms of their meaning. Overstatement, much than reality, that is over. When we say somebody is over smart, smarter than expected, that is over smart. Similar the case of litotes. Litotes is less than something. It is understatement. Over is more than something, whereas under is less than something. So we are going to deal with litotes in my next part of discussion. But in the meanwhile, we shall focus on hyperbole only. Now, different examples of hyperbole can be structured quite differently as sentences. So these are the purposeful exaggerations. And through these purposeful exaggerations, hyperbole creates strong feelings or impressions, or it is used to emphasize a point. Now we shall see some examples from the poems of the famous English poets. So the first example is taken from the 17th century metaphysical poet Andrew Marvell. These metaphysical poets like Andrew Marvell, John Donne, etc., often use hyperbole in their writing. Now, here we are referring to one of his poems, one of the poems by Andrew Marvell. The title of the poem is To His Coy Mistress. Now, when you read these lines, you realize how Marvell is using exaggerated statements to express his feelings towards his beloved. I shall read those lines for you people. They are given in bold. 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. 200 years to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. So you'll realize that an average human life is around 80 or so. Or we generally consider that human beings survive for 100 years. But here the poet is saying, I shall spend 100 years to praise your eyes and even the gaze on your forehead. Your forehead. I shall spend this much time. I shall keep on gazing your forehead. And 200 years to adore each breast. So I'll spend 200 years and 30,000 to praise each and every part of your body, your beauty. But you know it very well that human beings cannot survive for such a long period. So this is how we understand that all these lines from the poem are full of exaggerations. So this is an instance of hyperbole. We shall understand it with the help of one more poem by Robert Burns. The title of the poem is A Red, Red Rose. I'm sure most of you must have studied this poem. In this poem, the narrator, the poetic speaker, says he will love his Bonnie lass. Bonnie lass means a beautiful girl, his beloved. So I shall again read these lines for you. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. I'll love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. Till all the seas gang dry, means till the seas become dry. It will never happen. Do you think that seas will become dry? My dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. till the rocks melt with the sun. Because of the heat of the sun, the rocks melt down. So these are impossible things. The seas will never become dry, waterless. The rocks, mean the mountains and all, will not melt with the heat of the sun ever. These are all impossible things. I will love this still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. Even if the time passes, we become old, then also I'll keep loving you. So this suggests the beautiful use of exaggeration, hyperbole. I hope these two examples help you understand the use of hyperbole in poetry.